this is Ustidia Crochet, and I'm going to take you step by step through how to do this design right here. It's a mandala that has two distinct sections. The center section is a spiral pattern that has these little baubles on it that always kind of reminded me of sort of flower petals or something. And then the outside we have a starburst that's going on. Step by step we'll go through every single round showing you how to do it. Now when you look at it as a whole, center it a little bit, it can look deceptively difficult because it's complicated, but the way we deal with it is to go round by round, focusing only on one small part at a time, and then within each round actually only having a small segment, which gets bigger every time, which is repeated 8 times around. So it really is just a small series of stitches that we do over and over again for every different round, a different pattern. So if you focus on the small details, a big project actually becomes pretty simple in its smallest form. All right, so here it is again, set up at the table so I can show you some of the stitches that you're going to need to know to do this. And each of these, by the way, has a video explaining how to do it here on my YouTube channel. So we're going to start with a magic circle, so if you've been experienced with that, that'll help. Mostly we're dealing with single crochet stitches, though we have these overlay stitches, these front post stitches, so it's good to be comfortable with double crochet, treble crochet, and front post stitches, though again I show you how to do those if you never have before. We do puff stitches, and that's explained as well, and also a few random stitches. There are camel stitches here, so I show you how to do that too. But the more comfortable you are with single crochet, you know the basic stitches, single crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, chaining, stuff like that, you want to keep a pretty consistent tension through everything to keep the stitches nice and neat. So that's really what you need to know. I don't think, you know, a beginner could do this if you've been, you know, practicing for a while and you feel pretty comfortable with just the basic stitches. As I said, everything is just step by step shown to you. But the more experience you've had, obviously the easier it's going to be for you. But go ahead and give it a try. As for yarn, you really can pick any colors that you want. Here I have it, another sample of the same pattern done with a different color palette. You know, it's fun to play around with the colors and really create a unique design. But for the one I did here, which is how I'm showing you step by step, this is the actual one that I filming this at the end of the project and now putting it at the beginning. These are the yarn colors and choices that I used, so it would be helpful for you to have. It's a mercerized cotton. It's kind of shiny and it holds up really well. It's a nice weight too, because I find the smaller weight works really well. So you're going to need white, this magenta color, a dark blue, a light blue, an aqua, this color here, which is it's actually a lime green, but it comes out yellow in most of them, a lavender or purple color, which you can see I have very little left. You don't need a lot of this, and a coral color yarn too, so a pink or a coral color. Also, if you have any scrap yarn of a similar weight, you can use that. There are a number of rounds and rows where I show you can use any color you want. So I have a variegated one here that looks really pretty in some of the rounds. Again, you can play around with them so long as they're similar weight to each other. You should be okay. Now, as I said, these are all fairly fine. I think, what's the category here? It's light, number 3, weight yarn. If you're new to this and haven't tried it before, you may want to try a heavier, like a worsted weight yarn, and that does tend to be a little easier for a newer crocheter. The smaller the yarn, it can be a little tricky. So if you want to, even if you just want to start the first few rounds with worsted weight yarn, see how it goes, and then maybe go back to a smaller one later, it's certainly worth the experiment. I do recommend, though, cotton yarn I find holds up better than acrylic yarn for these, but whatever you feel comfortable using, you know, try to keep the colors as consistent with this, simply because it'll help you with the instructions. But beyond that, you know, have fun with the yarn choice and the color. For a hook, I tend to go with a hook a size or two smaller than the one recommended on the yarn, because the tighter the stitches, the nicer the look of it. But go with one that you're comfortable with. There is no specific gauge for this project. In the end, you have this beautiful round shape, which you can turn into a table runner, a pillow. They look great stuffed as pillows, and anything you want. So, you know, really just go with what is comfortable with you and what you feel like will work best for your personal style. Finally, before we begin the first round, I want to show you, this is the other sample I have, which is with the other color palette. And forgive all my doodling here, but these are my notes. The written instructions for this pattern using this color form, or this color palette, are available on Etsy for sale. So the videos here showing you step by step are obviously free on YouTube, but if you would like the written instruction with all the photos with it, that is available on my shop on Etsy. It's Eustidia on Etsy, and I'll have a link on it here. So if you would like to purchase that, it's 49 rounds total. So you can either go video by video, watching them here and just doing it for free, or if those written instructions would help you for doing it again in the future, or just help you through this process now, check out my shop there and see the other patterns that I have for sale. So to start our mandala, we need a magic circle with 8 single crochets in it. So I start my magic circle. The first stitch is just going to be a chain stitch that's not going to count towards our 8. So there's a chain. Now I need 8 more stitches inside here. Single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once we have those, I can free the tail here out of the center and pull on it to tighten up the circle. Just make sure the stitches all lay nicely on the outside. Pull on it. I am going to tighten it a little bit more, but still sew it together just to make sure it doesn't come loose, because I've had magic circles pop loose and it always sucks when it happens at the end of a project. So now to finish this out, our first round, I'm going to cut the yarn here and do a needle join without using a needle, because I'm kind of lazy and I don't like putting a needle on every single time. So we're going to do it into the second stitch right here. To do that, I'm going to insert my hook from back to front through both loops. I'm going to grab the tail end I have here and pull it through. Eventually pull it through. Tighten that up. I'm going to bring the thread or the yarn back in front. Take the last single crochet from the round, put the hook in from back to front, but not through both loops, just this back loop. Grab the yarn and pull it through. Which lets me do that and gives me my first round circle here with 8 stitches on the outside. So round 1 was our magic circle. We finished that here. I did take the one end that we had tightened to close up the magic circle, put it on a needle and wound it around a couple of times under the stitches and then tied a knot to secure it. The other end, the tail end here that we had done the needle join, I'm going to leave this here so that I can carry it in the stitches and hide it that way. So to do round 2, we're going to switch our yarn to Aqua or turquoise and join in on any stitch we want. Does not matter here. To To join in, we're going to go through the back loop only, because all single crochets, all these stitches are worked back loop only. We're going to draw up a loop and then a chain stitch. That will count as the first single crochet, that chain stitch. So after the chain, what we're going to do here is always a single crochet followed by 2 stitches in the same one, an increase. So here's our first stitch, that counts as our single crochet, which means this next one in the back loop only is going to be an increase. So 2 single crochets. And notice I'm holding the tail inside the stitches so that I don't have to weave it in later. So I'm just holding it in there and doing the stitches around it. Next one, back loop only, single crochet, followed by here an increase. So 2 in the same stitch. Single crochet. You notice now I can also pick up the white tail and hold that in the stitches too. So it's a single crochet followed by an increase, and you're just going to do that all the way around. All right, so I finished doing the stitches all the way around, and you notice here on my last stitch I had an increase, and here on the other side is where the chain stitch was. So it does help you know if you've done the stitches right. You should be able to finish that repeat, so have an increase, and then the next stitch around the circle should be just the single crochet, and at the end that means here this single chain stitch. So to finish this off, I'm going to go ahead and cut my working yarn and do the needle join again. So we're going to pull this yarn through, and for here and every other round to do the needle join, you're going to skip the chain stitch and go into the first single crochet. So again, for the needle join, I put my hook in from back to front through both loops, grab the yarn, pull it through to the back. Then, tightening it up a bit, I'm going to bring the yarn back to the front, come in this last stitch, this last single crochet of the round, go in from back to front, not through both loops, just through the back loop, grab the yarn, and bring it through. That means right here I have my second round done. To clean up the yarn, since I had carried the yarn in the stitches, I want to leave this tail we just did the needle join, that wants to stay so that I can weave that in the next round, but these two right here that I carried in the stitches I can cut, so now I don't have to weave that in. And like I said, this tail will get held in the stitches on the next round. So if you do this right, you can pretty much go around through the whole thing and only have to weave in the very last tail. If you find that difficult or don't like doing it, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do it. You can just go ahead and weave those tails in as you go, or do them all at the end, whatever your preference is. All right, we're ready for round 3. I'm gonna switch back to white yarn here. Make it a little bit here up on the table. So for this round, and for most of the ones hereafter, it does matter which one you start on and where you join in, just so that you can keep the count and the pattern right. So what we're going to do is we want to start on the first stitch of any increase. So if I get a little closer here, you'll notice I have an increase right here. So I'm going to start in the first stitch, this one right here. It does not matter if I start close to the tail here or anywhere, but I find if I start farther away from the tail, I can get the working yarn underneath the stitches for a while, cut it, and then pick up this yarn in the stitches and cut it, so that I don't have to deal with two at the same time very often. So that means since this guy's over here, I'm going to start with this increase and get my first stitch joining in this first stitch in the increase. So let me grab my white yarn, I'm going to go ahead and join back loop only into this first stitch in the increase. And it would help if I grabbed the whole loop. Don't want to split the yarn. And it's not playing nice this time. There we go. One chain to hold it. That's going to count as our single crochet. So for this, we're going to repeat this pattern 4 times all the way around. It's going to be a single crochet, an increase, and then we're going to do a double crochet where we're going to grab onto the yarn down here, the front loop from the previous round, that first round that we did. So here's our single crochet, now an increase, and remember, I'm carrying that yarn in the stitches, if you can see it, so that I don't have to weave it in later. Now we're going to need to do a double crochet. I'm not going to go into this blue stitch here. I'm going to go down into the front loop of the white stitch down here. This is pretty tight. Come on. There we go. So finish my double crochet. You notice that the stitch actually carries over on top of the blue. Now I'm going to skip the stitch here because it's going to count as this one. So we're going to skip that stitch and repeat the pattern again. So single crochet, increase, double crochet where we skip the one here. So skipping that one, we have a single crochet, an increase, and a double crochet where I'm going to grab the stitch down here. And when we do these for the front loop, these overlay stitches, you want to grab this from bottom to top. There we go. So that's twice. We got to do it 4 times all the way around. So that's 2 more repeats. And again, it is a single crochet, an increase, then a double crochet. So I repeated the pattern around. I'm just getting to my final stitch. The final repeat, I had my single crochet, the increase, the 2 there. And you notice I've got 1 blue single crochet here. That's my last stitch, so I finished the round correctly with the pattern. So I'm going to do my double crochet, grabbing the front loop of the stitch down here to do my double crochet. And now we can go ahead and join this round and finish it out. So again, the needle join. I'm going to cut the yarn. Pull it through and do the needle join into the first single crochet, not this chain stitch. So from back to front, put the hook through both loops, grab the tail and pull it through. Bring the yarn back to the front, go to this last stitch, which in this instance was this double crochet here. I'm going to put the hook from back to front just through the back loop, grab my yarn, pull it through, and it gives me a nice finished end. So after this row, you notice, round rather, we have these 4 sort of spokes that covered up. Those are our 4 double crochet. To continue to the next one, I want to keep this tail that I just done the needle join with, but I can cut these. These are the tails from the previous round where I had carried them in the stitches, so I didn't have to weave them in. So that there is round 2. These first few rounds can definitely be the toughest of this pattern, simply because everything is so small. So it's why I do recommend, if this is your first time trying a mandala or working with yarn like this, you might want to go with a heavier weight yarn, like a worsted weight cotton yarn. It may be easier for you to do it if it's slightly larger.